Hello, hello. Cassandra with you here from CassandraVaughn.com. Let's do another Monday EQ lesson, which means let's talk about emotional intelligence. And this is one I don't remember where the idea came from. Maybe it's because there have been many moments where I've wanted to respond to an email from an angry place. I don't know if you can relate, but you get an email that pisses you off and you just want to click, reply and go, "Ah," and then you stop yourself and you go, don't do that. That's a bad idea. So in today's EQ lesson, I want to talk about before you send an angry email, do this. Either before you send an angry reply or before you send an angry email out where you're the initiator of the email, there are a few things from an emotional intelligence perspective that you should do first. So there's nothing wrong with anger. Let me start there. Everybody feels angry at some point. I don't know why we make anger this big bad wolf when actually, if you transmute anger, this is an EQ lesson in and of itself, when you transmute anger into something productive, it can actually fuel you and move you forward. So anger is not the enemy here. Let me start out by saying that. Anger that is not transmuted is actually very exhausting to you from an emotional intelligence perspective. And then it causes you to make poor decisions if you sit in the anger too long. So it's all about how do you leverage your anger? How do you transmute your anger? And how do you use the anger as a tool to move forward in a healthy, positive way? So that's a lesson unto itself about anger. Not a bad thing. It just has to be transmuted properly. So let's talk about before you send an angry reply to an email, before you send out an angry email because somebody has done something that you don't like, here's what you need to do first. Number one, bring your heart rate down. You know that this thing that happens when you're like pissed off? If your heart is still racing, if your blood pressure is still up, you do not have enough clarity, you do not have enough centeredness to adequately and strategically respond to that email or to send out an email. Don't send out an email. Bring your heart rate down. Number two, once you've brought your heart rate down, step number two is ask yourself a very important question about whatever it is you're pissed about. What's the outcome that I want? What's the outcome so you get an email that really pisses you off. You bring your, it's doing this. You bring your heart rate down. And then you need to say, okay, what is the outcome that I want here? Because if the outcome that I want is to piss them off in return, well, I could do that. But that's probably not the real outcome that I want. So bring your heart rate down, step number one. Step number two, ask and answer the question, what is the outcome that I really, really want here? Step number three, ask a follow-up question, which is going to be hard to answer, especially if you're pissed off at the person on the other end of the email. But ask and answer this question. What does this person need? Now, when I say what does this person need, I don't mean what is the deliverable that they need right now? I don't mean what is the motive behind them sending me that email that pissed me off? I mean, when people act out of hand, when people, I also call it, when people act a fool. When people act a fool and you know that they just decided to send you an email and the only thing you can think to yourself is this person must be out of their minds. Have they forgotten who they're talking to? When you have that moment with somebody, it's really important to get to the bottom of what do they really need? Because people who are being defensive or people who are initiating anger in someone else by being abrasive in an email, there is a core need within them that is not being met. And I don't mean you didn't get them the document or the report. I mean, they don't feel seen, they don't feel heard, they don't feel valued, they don't feel understood, they don't feel like anybody's on their side. What does that person really need from you? And very often when people are defensive and they send these really defensive emails, they don't feel supported. They don't feel valued. They don't feel heard. They don't feel seen. So Third step is, first you bring your heart rate down, then you say, what's the outcome that I want? Then you ask the question, what does this person really need from me? Final thing you do before you send an angry email. Then you ask the final question. You can tell I'm a coach because I ask all these questions. How can my response to this email help both of us win? How can I ensure a win-win here? How can I ensure that both of us win? How can my response connect us rather than disconnect us? How can my response help this person feel seen, valued, heard? Now listen, you may be angry to the point where you don't want them to feel seen, valued, or heard. You may be like, I don't give a crap if they feel heard because they need to be corrected. That's not a win-win. And that's not going to get you what you want. And in fact, that's going to alienate them further. And in fact, if you stand from a place of, I need to put them in their place, what you end up doing is alienating them, isolating yourself, and not creating any kind of win for either of you. It's just this ego battle that will keep going forever and a day. So how can your response help both of you win? And really, both of you have to win for this to be successful. Like at the end of the day, if you have somebody who's constantly being defensive, constantly constantly on the defensive, if they're constantly on the defensive, you've really got to think about, how can we both win here? How can we both succeed together? How can we find some middle ground? We don't have to agree. We got to find some middle ground though. How can we find some middle ground here? And where is that middle ground for both of us? And sometimes you have to respond in the email and say, can we talk about this? I've scheduled some time for us. I get the sense that there are things you feel are not right in the situation, and I'd like to understand that more. And it's really not an email. It really warrants having a conversation. So I put 30 minutes on our calendar. That's how you create a win-win. So I go back to the beginning. Before you send any angry emails, do those 4 things. 1, bring your heart rate down. 2, ask yourself, what's the outcome that I want? 3, ask yourself, what does this person need? And 4, ask yourself, how can my response help both of us win? If you take that approach, rather than responding from your ego, you will win and they will win, which means everybody wins. If you choose to respond and reflect back the anger that was given to you, everybody loses. So the real question is, do you want to win or do you want to be right? Think about it.